Hi everyone, it's Gareth here from Busby's Bakery and we're going to do a brown bread today. Now this is going to be a new one on me. I've not followed this exact recipe before and I'm going to just show you some of the ways that I go through trying out a new recipe. Every flour and every mill and every batch of flour can have different properties in its hydration. So some will take more water, some will take less. Now in this we're going to use wholemeal flour and we're going to use some white flour. So because the wholemeal flour generally will take more water and it will be slower to absorb that water as well. Which is why we're going to do an autolyse, or it's quite an extended autolyse, so really it goes into the soaker sort of territory. In here I've got 230 grams of wholemeal flour and 350 grams of white flour. You can do 100% wholemeal, but I wouldn't advise it straight away because it's a very thin line between perfection and complete fail. So I would edge your way and sort of cut your way in by doing, I think this is 40%, 40% wholemeal, 60% white, and then you can gradually get that up to maybe 80% wholemeal and 20% white, and then you might actually just stop there and go, you know what, I'm quite happy with this, or you might want to really push it and try and go to 100%. I've got the flour there. Then we're going to add some water, which is 400 grams. When we talk about percentages in baking, especially the water percentage, what we're talking about is the percentage of water of the ingredient against the total amount of flour. For example, in here, if we add both the flours together, we get, 580 grams, okay? So 69% of 580 grams equals 400 grams, which is the water. Then if we need to tweak the recipe a little bit, we need to add a little bit less or a little bit more water, then we can then change percentage to the percentage that we kind of got. So say if we needed to add another 10 grams of water in here to get the right consistency, then we'd then work out, okay, 10 grams, 5.8 is 1 gram, 1%, so we're going to add on an extra 2%. So instead of 69%, we'll make it 71%. And then we can remember that for next time. And also that means if we want to scale the recipe up or scale it down, then we can do that with ease just by using a spreadsheet, which you can find on the website if you're not already on there now watching this video. So what we're going to do now is just pour a tiny bit of the water away. Okay, 18. So I've taken off almost 20 grams of that. So that's like our backup. We'll use that. We'll try and use it. But if it doesn't need it, then we won't. In the salt to the water. So then I'll add the flour and put that in the water bowl, just so that no salt gets stuck to the side of the bowl if we try to do it the other way around. And using our scraper again, just give it a nice little gentle mix. And we're going to keep it in the bowl this time. And if you feel the dough now, it should be sort of half and half. It should be kind of sticky, but also kind of dry in places. I'm feeling this is a little bit drier than it is sticky. So I'm going to add the rest of the water. So here we have it. It's I've just gently incorporated it for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and now we've got this kind of structure. We can feel that there's some strength in the dough. There is some dry bits, especially like the grain, but that's fine. I think that's going to be perfect, okay, for what we want. It might be that we need to add a little bit more water, but hey, what I can definitely find is that there's no real dry bits where there's no moisture added to it at all. I've not added the yeast in yet. That's on purpose, it's not a mistake. What we're going to do is this is going to allow it to autolyse, it's allow it to ferment naturally for about an hour. And that will help the flour to be hydrated, which will hydrate the protein, which will lead to long strands of gluten. which will then be better for our dough to build its structure. The thing is, with wholemeal flour, you kind of need to give it a bit of time, otherwise it gets, the structure isn't as good and you can end up with holes through the middle of it, or a really dense loaf. Right, so after about an hour, we're now ready to get going. Down there. Okay, so we're going to add the yeast, and for this I'm going to just crumble it up as much as I can, just to make it a little bit easier to break into the dough. So, off we go. I'm just going to try and incorporate this in a little bit with my dough scraper. Yeah, that'll do. And then onto the table. So again, as before, we're going to just use this slow incorporation technique. The technique I'm using is with the palm, that bit there, not the palm, the lower palm. Push away, pull back, push away, pull back. Just repeat this for about 2 minutes. And so, checking on the water here, the dough, it should be fairly sort of tacky, fairly kind of sticky, but not overly wet. If it is, you might still be okay. If you do want to add a little bit of flour, add it now, add it right at the start. Should be able to feel a bit of strength in the dough as well. If it was too dry, I'd stretch the dough out like this, as best as I can. Take a little jug or something, drop in a tiny drop, and then fold it in like this. And then I'd flatten it out again if I felt I needed more, put a little bit more in, until I kind of got where I wanted to be. Now it's best to add the flour, the water and all the ingredients in at the start, apart from any fats, which is what we're going to add some butter a little bit later. The dough's fairly strong now, but let's start with some fast kneading to get this really going. So set my timer, 4 minutes, and let's just get cracking. Now I'm going to add a little bit of butter. This is 17 grams of salted butter. If you're going to use unsalted, you could knock up the amount of salt in the actual recipe. Tiny little bit by about 1 gram. So I'm just breaking it into little bits. Put it on top like that. And then just stretch, fold over, and just push. And then go back to fast kneading. Once I've felt that there's no more like lumps, or I can't see any or feel any, it feels fairly even. So that took about 1 minute, 2 minutes, something like that. Then I can then just put it back in the bowl, and we can take a temperature reading now. If it's as before, if it's above 25, then we want to put it in the fridge for a little bit. If it's below that, then we might want to put it in a warm place, but if it's there or thereabouts, then that's absolutely fine. So we're just going to cover it and leave it to rest. Dust some flour on the surface. Much easier to get the dough out of the bowl with a dough scraper. Give it a little flatten, just stretch one side out, fold over, stretch the other side out, fold over to meet that in the middle, fold them over the top of each other, pull this one out towards you, fold over to the middle, pull this one out and just fold over the top there and all around. There you go. You can just cup it if you want to. It's not essential, but it gives you a bit of practice holding the dough. There you go. Just start feeling a little bit gassy in there now. And we leave that again for another hour. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. And look, you can see the dough now. It's nice and big. It's kind of doubled in size. It's nice and wobbly. If we stretch it out, it's now going to be nice and strong and stringy. So, got a nice smell to it. So we're ready to do the pre-shaping. So, what we're going to do is this is going to be baked in, or it's going to be proved in one of these, which is a little wicker basket, which is effectively the same as a banneton, which is like that, yeah. But for this, I don't want the lines around the outside. I quite like the shape, and it's just something, a new shape to use apart from the round or the long ones. It kind of goes steeped at the side. It's quite cool. This is just, it cost me about £1, £2 maybe from the range. You can get them in home stores and that sort of thing. Really cheap, and you can use them for baking bread all the time. So, like a bit of flour. Take that out here. And then just press it down to push out some of the air. Okay. So the folding over like that. We take that side over like that. Turn that over. Take that side over like that. Over again. You can feel that pockets of air getting pushed out, and you can hear them as well. So just keep doing this for a second till all that air's gone. Okay. And then just cup it with our hands, just cup like that, bring it towards us. And we just take a bit of flour, dust it underneath, and we can leave that now for another 10 minutes. Now it's rested, we're going to do the final shape. So take it from underneath. If the dough feels wet, you might want to add a bit of flour to the table. And again, we're just going to push down like that. Okay, and then repeat the same thing again. So fold, fold, towards you, fold, and then just cup it around like that. So that's a underneath motion. It just smooths out the steam at the bottom. Now I'm going to add some porridge oats to it. So it's the same process for adding like seeds, like sesame seeds on burger buns, or you can put cracked wheat or something like that on top. In this case, I'm going to use some porridge oats. So I'm going to take my spray. And then just spray the bread. Preferably with a bit of mist. You could, if you wanted to, dunk the bread in water and then roll them in. Into our proofing basket, we don't need to add any flour because the porridge oats will act as a barrier. And we just lift up and in like that. So the bread now can be left to rise, and I'm just going to put a bag over the top. come back, check on it in about an hour. Okay, so it's about an hour and a half, and this dough is blooming up. You can feel now when I do the poke test, it's staying down. We're good to go. So I've got the peel here. If you don't have a peel, what we'd use is probably turn a baking sheet upside down. So you've got the lip, so you can, it's on the back, so it's a flat surface. Unless you've got a flat surface one anyway. And maybe put some greaseproof paper down on it, and then you can just slide the dough in the oven with the greaseproof paper on, and that'll work a treat. If not, we're going to use this method. So I'm just sprinkling a bit of ground rice on there. You can use semolina, or you can just use flour if you want, and that's just to stop it from sticking as we slide it in the oven. But we don't want too much, because then it sticks to the bottom and it burns. So the balance here is always a challenge. We don't always get it right. Okay, so that's going over like that. Wow. Okay, I'm going to do one cut through the top there, just a small one, and that's going to go straight in the oven. So here is our beautiful bread. I've let it cool down. I'm really proud of it actually. It's not too crunchy on top. It's kind of a little bit overproofed, to be honest with you. And I could tell that because it was just a little bit gassy and it collapsed before it went in the oven. So what I would do next time is just go with my gut, and when it had reached that, when it had come to the top of the basket, I would have put it in the oven. But hey, look, for a first go, I think that's pretty good. Let's have a cut and see what it's like. So you've got a nice crumb in there, lovely smell. Oh, that's amazing. Try a bit. You know what? It's so tempting to go all in with wholemeal, make 100%. But I do prefer that is strong enough. That is plenty of flavour in there, especially the dark crust and that sort of thing. That go nicely with a bit of cheese. So if you've enjoyed this video, give it a go yourself. The recipe will be in the description and on my website at busbysbakery.com. The link will be down below. Also, if you wanted to do this recipe but do it in a tin, like we've done before, I'll put a recipe on there for the tin as well, the amounts, or you can have a little play around with the baker's formula, which will also be on there. So, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I'll see you all soon.